the most scary trips I've ever experienced. This is gonna be a collection of a bunch of trip reports from the most difficult and scary trips that I can remember having. And I guess scary is a little bit of a different word than difficult, because sometimes beautiful experiences are really tough. We're confronted with a sense of truth and we're just working through that, letting go, surrendering into that, and coming to terms with the truth and of the beauty that is experienced. But then there are scary trips. And there, a lot of the times what I'm experiencing is a lot of fear. Especially, I guess, the fear of death and fear related to physical health issues. And sometimes it's a real fear, and sometimes it's, I don't know, just intensified in the experience. So let's just start with the trips. Hey, I'm Vego, and this is Psychedelic Actualization. On this channel we talk about topics like self-realization, self-actualization, and working with psychedelics to live a more authentic and fulfilling life. But some experiences can be quite tough, difficult, maybe even traumatizing and scary. So if you are in need of any support, I offer psychedelic integration coaching. If you're curious, there's a link in the video description. First scary trip that I encountered in my life was actually my first mushroom experience. I was 16 and I listened to a lot of Terence McKenna, and he said, do 5 grams dried in silent darkness, alone, by yourself. And I was like, this is the way to do it. So I got my hands on some mushrooms when I was 16 and I tried them alone, at home, at my parents' house, at night. 5 grams. And when I consumed them, the first thought that popped into my mind was, I poisoned myself. These were poisonous mushrooms. And I don't remember much from the experience itself, because I kind of passed out throughout the experience, and these waves were hitting me, and then I was kind of taken into this visionary space, but it was more like I was passing out, and then I was coming back into reality. And I remember it was definitely one of the scariest experiences I've had so far. But because of my young naivete in my younger years in the psychedelic space, I was able to handle it well, but I definitely thought I was dying. It was kind of also my first ego death experience. And I called my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, I need support, like I need help. And she even told me beforehand, like, I'm not gonna be available, I'm gonna be working or whatever. It's like, please don't call me for support. And so I called her, I was like, I need help. And then she called a couple of my friends, and they were coming to my house, and I was too afraid to open the door because I was in this intense paranoid, disoriented, dissociative state. But they kind of somehow came in, and I was like, I opened my eyes by passing out, and I was like, I didn't even recognize how they came into the house, and I was like, oh, those people are there. And then I passed out again, and when I woke up the next time, I was seeing my girlfriend and her friend, and I was like, oh, am I in heaven? And really, like, having had this thought of dying, it was tough and it was scary. And it took me a year or two to kind of muster up the courage or curiosity to touch mushrooms again, and then I started a little bit slower and a bit more gently into some experiences. That was my first kind of encounter with scary trips, even very early on in my psychedelic career. And I have to say, I don't have like that many scary trips that I've encountered. From all the trips I've done, most of them have been quite positive, but then there were a few who were quite intense and scary. Second scary trip I remember was an LSD experience. So what was scary about that one, and I haven't shared that one before, maybe there's gonna be a longer trip report about that in the future, is it was not affecting myself. I was not in a totally bad state or fearful state, but I shared the experience with a friend of mine. And then this friend of mine was like, I want to share this experience with his friend of mine. And I kind of knew this person as well. I was like, okay. But as I didn't knew too much about the space, and we both took 200 mics, I was overdosing the third guy with also 200 mics. And it was way too much for him. And I also didn't make sure that he was properly prepared. I kind of sent him a bunch of YouTube videos and I was like, watch these and then we'll go and have a good experience. But he was not in the right set for this experience, not really knowing what to expect. And on top, I'd overdosed him and it was a typical in the book bad trip for him. Like seeing the devil everywhere, wanting to kill himself or jump out of the window or go in front of a car. And for me and my friend, it was like we were trying to get him into letting go into the experience, and it was this constant loop of what is going on. And he thought we knew something that he didn't knew, and it was this whole conspiracy for him. And we're like, yes, we know something, we're here, this is it, like, whew, let's come back here. And then it was this infinite loop, and we couldn't kind of get him to accept the present moment. And what was scary about that one was my inability to hold the space, right, for another person, because I didn't felt able to hold the space for him. Even though we tried the meditation, we tried to watch something, we tried to change the environment, change the music, and nothing could kind of fully get him to relax into the present moment. And so at the end we had to call the ambulance because he was running around naked in my apartment and then kind of in the middle of the night bothering the neighbors. And it was not possible for us to handle that. He even kind of punched through my computer screen, right? It was tough. It was scary. It was scary in the sense of not being in control of what another human body is doing, and that there is harm happening not just physically in the environment but also mentally damage done to himself, or just like this possibility of him harming us physically or himself physically, right? Because the situation was so far out of control, and that's a possibility, and that's the definitely scary one. Phew, I finally shared that. Wow, never shared that before. It's a tough one, and that made me aware. Kind of, that's a lesson that I took from it, of being very careful in whom I'm share the experience with, and also in what way I share the experience, and then really being careful on this path of trying to kind of walk the path of the shamanic practitioner, facilitator, sharing these experiences, because I can take the responsibility for myself in experiences at times, but taking the responsibility for another person, that's a whole nother level. And then being able to hold the space even if something very intense like that happens. So that was second scary experience I remember. Third one, cannabis. And this one, I don't know if it's because of the cannabis itself, because I was smoking like a lot of weed for like 3 years. Every day I was smoking and smoking and smoking. And I don't know, sometimes I had like really bad quality weed. But I think this experience was after a little break. I took a little break for like 5 days, 6 days, 7 days. So my tolerance was not that high anymore. And I remember I was smoking a joint, and then I was going to the grocery store. It was a beautiful sunny day. Maybe I also didn't drink too much water, but I was getting my groceries and I was like, I'm really high. Like, I'm stoned, super stoned. And when I was getting all my groceries together, I was in line and the line was moving forward. And then there was just one person in front of me, and then it was me. And at that moment, everything intensified, all sounds intensified, and I saw, and my visual field kind of blurred into this white light, and I had like everything there were so many colors, right? And in a supermarket, I don't like it even now sober. Like it's almost too much for me. But there's so much color, there's so much sound, there's so many people talking. And I was right in line, right? It was my turn, right? And then everything intensified. I almost couldn't hear anything anymore. I couldn't understand anything anymore. And then through this white light, I almost couldn't see anything anymore. And I felt like I was kind of either taken out of my body or kind of passing out, on the brink of passing out. And that was scary, being in a setting where I had to act as a human being and interact with a person to get my groceries and pay for them, right? And then exactly in that moment, I was having kind of this intense breakdown, intensification of the cannabis, especially with cannabis, because it was so unexpected. That was so scary about it as well. When that would happen and I would lie down in kind of ceremonial space, then okay, fine. But that happening unexpectedly in a setting where I have to act as a human, scary. That was scary one as well. And as I said, I don't know if it's because of the quality of the cannabis, if it was a little bit of a weird cannabis, or if it was just the cannabis. And I've heard many stories of high dose cannabis can induce very tough and scary experiences, even for experienced psychonauts. So that was the third one. Maybe let's do two quick more. One quick one is, I remember slightly, I haven't documented those trips, but also early on in my kind of psychedelic explorations, I took LSD. And again, I'm not sure if it's because of the quality of the LSD, but I remember in some experiences that I got worried physically. And it was really tough on the body. And I remember that sometimes my heart was racing so fast in one or two experiences where I was seriously afraid that something is wrong with my body, and that I might get a heart attack or whatever it is, or that I damaged myself physically. And I haven't made sure or rechecked from the quality of the LSD I had back then, but because nowadays with the acid I have this really high quality, beautiful acid. It's good on the body. Like obviously it's stressful and sometimes there's convulsions and whatever vibrations, and it works through, right? And there's a lot of energetic load, but it's a different kind of experience nowadays for me, and it's not this worry that is coming in. And maybe it was also just my inexperience, but this worry of having something wrong physically, or even like the heart or whatever, it's like I remember that was some scary times back then as well. And then also wanting to sleep while coming down and having this heart vibrations and fluctuations and scary times. So definitely lesson from that, make sure you test your substances. Make sure you've got a pretty good source. You know them and you trust them, and you test your substances and it's pure. Because then this fear, you can at least say, okay, if I'm dying, you're more willing to let go into this ego death experience, right? When you know you've got a good substance, it's pure, it's not physically dangerous. And also do your research, right? See what is happening, what has happened to other people. Is this a safe substance for acid and mushrooms? You can say, pretty sure yes, it's pretty safe, physically at least. And last two ones, also one related to physical issues, but there I kind of knew that the substance itself was physically safe, but still in my 14-day ayahuasca retreat, ceremony 6, I was going through a night of infinite sickness physically, and I was just astounded and also a little bit afraid of, is this sickness gonna stay? Because it arose in the experience, in the trip itself, And then I was feeling like my nose is blocked, I'm coughing, I've got fever, but at the same time then I'm cold, then my body hurts, like everything hurts, and then I felt like I had cancer, and then I was all these sicknesses came up, and I was feeling as sick as I've ever felt in the experience. And it was scary. It was scary in a sense that I thought that this sickness is gonna stay after the ceremony, and then right at the end of the ceremony the sickness ended. You can watch the whole trip report right here. It was a fascinating journey, and what impressed me about it was just like the ability for the psychedelic experience and from the ayahuasca to intensify symptoms of physical sickness throughout ceremony, and induce them for the ceremony itself. I was just blown away by that, and a little bit like afraid of also my power of thoughts. I was like thinking about having cancer, and then I was like, no, let's not just think that, because that might manifest the cancer in my body, because I'm so powerful in this expanded state of consciousness. Fascinating one, but also scary one. Last scary one I remember, also an ayahuasca experience, in a setting where I didn't feel safe. That was scary, because I was in this ayahuasca ceremony underground, and something was wrong, or something felt wrong with the facilitator and the group itself, and I didn't feel comfortable and safe right there. And then in the second night, in my experience, I kind of realized, and I don't know if that's because of the ayahuasca or because of the actual setting, that this is not right practice. Like, this doesn't feel safe. I don't feel safe here, and this is this is a cult. I don't feel like, I don't feel free to express myself or whatever it is, and I wanted to escape. And wanting to escape an experience and resisting it, especially with the DMT, man, boy, ow. You don't want to experience that. That's scary. It was one of the longest nights of my life, right? This perception to be caught there. And then I wanted to kind of scream and say to the facilitator and the shaman, like, stop this, stop singing, stop preaching. He was preaching during the ceremony and sharing perspectives politically and philosophically, and I was like, please just stop this. And I wanted to speak up, but I was too afraid to speak up, and then I was afraid that they would notice that I am not in alignment with what is happening, and I had to kind of hide, and I left the room, and I was looking at my phone during ayahuasca ceremony, just distracting myself so time could pass. And then I was afraid that they would find me because I left the room, and you were not allowed to leave the room. Scary times. So the lesson for that is make sure when you're with other people and when you're alone, importance of the setting, right? Of the setting, of the experience, that you resonate with the facilitator, you resonate with the space, because otherwise it can get pretty uncomfortable and scary. Maybe bonus one, come on. I just remembered my first bad DMT experience. Bad, whatever that means, but usually DMT is very benevolent and very kind, especially when I smoke it. Sometimes it's just out there, but it's never like fully forcing me to be absolutely scared or in this state of fear. But this one time I smoked this crystal DMT, and I was in this room, and immediately I felt like wanting to escape the experience, right? Again, this pattern of not wanting the experience to happen the way it is unfolding. And I was like, I'm afraid that I was in this infinite loop, and I knew I couldn't escape this loop. And it was scary, because this loop feels so infinite, right? It feels like it's not stopping. It's never gonna stop, because time is so distorted. And then wanting to get out of this loop, I wanted to escape physically, like go to the bathroom or wherever, but I knew that this experience is here, it's present in me, and I can't escape it. and then it was just a matter of sitting it out, kind of. But it was definitely scary in a sense of feeling so long, right? Feeling so infinite, and feeling like being caught up in the experience, especially with the DMT. Very uncomfortable. So what have been some of your most scary experiences? I hope you enjoyed that one. I just wanted to kind of batch up a couple of trip reports and kind of share what I remember from them, because those experiences were very significant and they shaped me. And also I just want to point out over and over again of the potential risks and dangers and the potential scary and fearful experiences that we can encounter, and that we are definitely going to be encountering when we walk down this path. When you're experiencing deeper and deeper realms of consciousness through psychedelics, and when you're experiencing more and more of these experiences, inevitably I think you are going to encounter some of those scary experiences. May it be because of a mistake of set or setting or sourcing of substance, or just the nature of the experience itself. And I think it's just good to be aware of that and to appreciate the fact that this is also part of the path, right? Of this path of the psychonaut. So I appreciate you being here. Again, if you're struggling and you've had a really tough psychedelic experience, you can book the psychedelic integration coaching. Coaching is a wonderful way that helped me to integrate a lot of my experiences to truly transform the way I am showing up in life, and then take action based on insights gained in the realm and integrate the lessons I've learned. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next one. Much love.